number 2. There we go. Need something square preferably. Ooh, this is perfect. Nice and thick and square, but not still small. I'm just gonna have at it. Make this square. Yeah. But of course, this file does not have teeth on the edges, so that's going to make it a little difficult. So we'll find another one. It's too wide. This one is kind of weird, but it might work. How do you guys like my hole? Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, my hole's alright. And I decided, oh, I'll put the switch in here. But I didn't plan out my location very well. Because if we look over on this side, I've got a nice little piece of little rib in the plastic I need to cut away. So be careful where you put your hole. Save you a little bit of work. So now I gotta get rid of that guy, or at least part of him. Probably just part of him. Okay, so now I cut away. Where did my switch go? Just kind of trimmed it away with a X-Acto knife. I left this little edge on there for whatever reason. I see them around here. That little thing on it might help kind of line the console up. Figured I might as well keep it on there. But now the switch goes on there nicely. It looks okay. I still need to kind of clean up that hole a little bit, but should work out pretty good. Okay, so let's get soldering. Or soldering, depending on where you're from. I always said soldering. Although it does have an L in it, doesn't it? Anyway, I've already stripped 3 wires here, and I've just got all of the wire here. I'm going to cut them to length later. But, and it's good to have these little coils of solder, because you can kind of snake it up, and that's one less hand you have to utilize. So, and good soldering practice is to tin your wires, which is basically just putting, I don't know if I can see this in the camera, putting a nice little layer of it on the wire itself. And then it makes it a lot easier to actually solder 2 things. In fact, it might be basically impossible to do a good job without doing this. Kind of inspect them, make sure they look good. Obviously you don't want to strip too much wire off these, you just want kind of a minimal amount. I've stripped about, well under 1/4 of an inch. Well, not well under, but a couple 1/16ths of an inch at most. 1/8 of an inch. If you got extra solder on your pen, you can just kind of tap it off somewhere. Just shake it onto the table. But anyway, if we go over here now, I'm going to zoom this bad boy in. I'm going to do this. Okay, so there's our jumpers. Kind of sideways because that's the best I can do, getting close as I can. Here you got jumper 1, jumper 2. I lost part of my wire on the floor. Okay. So, it might be a good idea to put a little bit of solder on these points ahead of time. because it's, well, you're gonna need to probably, because there's not enough on there to actually do anything. It's just kind of ran out of memory card again. Anyway, got a little blob going on here, which is plenty. A little bit going on here. There we go. And actually, I was going to use this part on jumper 2, but I don't think it really matters. See if I can remove a little bit of this. Jumper 1 and jumper 2 are a little too close together for my taste. I want them to be bridged on their own. Shorted out. Anyway, I think it'll be fine. Looks like a bit too much maybe, but maybe not. And since I'm going to have my wires going off in this direction, I'm going to have to solder them about like this. Ass backwards. Come on. It's hard to hold wire. And just basically solder them on there is the instruction I'm going to give you. That is a hot wire. Okay. Fuck. Let me retry this. Bend it in the right direction. You don't want to keep the soldering pen on there too long, because you can actually damage circuit boards if you just hold it on there for, you know, a minute or something. I don't know exactly how long it takes, but it doesn't really matter what colors you use as long as you can remember that. Realize which one's which at some point in time. Might need a little bit more solder on this. It looks pretty good actually. And the yellow. It's going to be kind of tricky. You might have to trim this one a little bit. Trying to get the everything from without touching each other. These wires aren't quite as small as I want them to be, but as your solder is cooling, you don't want to move it at all, because if the solder cools and solidifies while it's kind of being moved, creates what they call a cold solder joint, which is basically a really shitty one that is basically broken, but not quite. Probably will break. Cold solder joints, you can usually just kind of rip the wire off really easily. So if you can rip your wires off really easily, like these aren't going to come off, then you need to redo them. All finished. Got my switch epoxied in there nicely. The wire is, actually braided it, going all the way back here, just to keep it nice and clean. And over here, plug these. I actually had to cut out some metal because this wire doesn't really do so well if it goes through this section of the console. Kind of has to go right along the edge. Otherwise, well, I guess if you take this metal shield out or maybe trim it down or something, it'll work just fine. But I kind of remove a little corner of this metal shielding so that I can get the wire to come out nice and straight and hug the edge of the case. But fortunately, I don't actually have any import games that won't boot, which is kind of embarrassing because I just modded this for no reason, technically. I've got Thunder Pro Wrestling and Darius 2, but they both boot just fine without the mod, or at least they did. And they have had plenty of Japanese in them while while they were working on my English system, so eventually I will actually test it out. I actually even tried all my English games to see if I could get some Japanese out of them, but that's a no-go. None of them would do anything interesting. So, until next time, which might be very soon actually. Might have a big surprise lined up tonight, might not, so keep watching. Thanks for watching. Now go away.